right, there we go. What's up, Matt? How we doing?
What's going on? Love the dramatic intro, man.
I know,
Sweet.
right?
Yeah, man.
Pumped up.
I felt I was about to run through my wall behind me. There's a brick wall. I was about to go run through that behind me, man.
That's
Yeah.
how we do it. There we go. Well, we've got looks like we're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, all over the place. So
Sweet.
Excited to do this, man. I know, every time I catch up with you, you've got something exciting going on. I know you guys you'll have a pretty fun story to share of even how you've used DealMachine recently. So
Sure.
Excited to get into all that stuff. But as we go through this today, I mean, feel free to jump in, say where you're watching from, jump in, say hi. I'm going to facilitate Q&A during this whole thing too. So if you've got good questions for Matt, feel free to jump in. I'll get a little bit of an intro here, so that way, you'll be able to know a little bit of context on better questions to ask. Nice to view the new place. There you go. Elise says hello. Love that.
Yeah, I saw that. What's up, Elise? Yeah, no, this is the spot that I found thanks to DealMachine. So we'll get more into that for
sure.
That's
exciting, man. Well, just for anyone who doesn't know you, quick intro. I know you're a recurring guest with us. You've been on with us multiple times. Always have a really, really good time. You give us great stuff. Matt Porcaro, you turned less than a 10K down payment into 130K in equity and a 2K a month passive cash flow in I think it was about a year, right?
8 months. 8 months.
There you go. That's crazy. So that was your kind of initial journey, which I'll love for you to get into a little bit more too. But you went through that, started teaching others about it, started the 203K way to be able to do that even more broadly and help others take advantage of that too. And you do an awesome job of that on Instagram, YouTube, all over the place. You put out a ton of great free stuff to help people out. So appreciate you spending time with us.
Yeah, I love you guys. I say it all the time. When I think about what I used to do when I was just beginning my infancy of my real estate investing days and trying to do driving for dollars, like the first way I really knew about it, I had a yellow pad and I was sitting on the side of the road etching down addresses and like half the time getting them wrong and, driving down the block. And it was just like so slow versus when your app came around and I realized what it did. It blew me away with how quick it was. So glad to be here. Glad to add any value I can to this community. And happy to be here.
Yeah. And again, anybody in the community, come on, feel free to introduce yourself, where you're watching from, ask Matt questions. He's an open book.
Mm-hmm.
If you could even start there, Matt, I know we briefly mentioned like that first deal you did, but can you talk more about like how you got into this and how you found 203K, as a good niche to teach others about?
Yeah, man. So kind of like I said, I was trying to get into real estate investing for a while, right? Started with wholesaling. I went down that world and did the driving for dollars thing, bandit signs, all those things. And to be honest, it was hard. I'm in Long Island, New York, suburb of New York City, very competitive area, and couldn't crack it. Really couldn't crack it. I was trying really hard to try to find a way into real estate investing, and it seemed like everything I tried really didn't work. It wasn't until one of my mentors told me about this program called the 203K loan. Which is an FHA loan for people that don't know. It's an FHA loan, but it's a version of the FHA loan that allows you to purchase fixer-upper properties up to a 4-unit, up to a 4-plex for only 3.5% down. And because these are fixer-upper properties and everything like that, the beauty of the 203K loan is it allows you to wrap the renovation costs into the mortgage. That way you're not paying for renovations up front. And the good thing about FHA loans is when you're using these loans to be an owner-occupant, you're buying your next property and you're moving in, you only need to put 3.5% down. So it's a great way to really get started. And I found out that way after trying years to try to break into the New York market, 3.5% down, that was attainable for me. The idea that I could fix and flip a house essentially, and, albeit my own house, but I didn't have a house yet, right? When I just got started, this is the best way to get started, right? I put a little bit out of pocket, built, as you said, 130,000 in equity in 8 months, just finding a fixer upper foreclosure duplex that I lived in one unit, rented out the other, house hacked it. And then the rest was history from there. So the truth is that unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, sometimes I go back and forth on this. The 203K isn't really that well known. And for the most part, the little bit that is known about it, there's a lot of misconceptions about it. It seems like it's almost taboo in the industry, but my whole community, the 203K way, is really just pulling the veil away from it and giving people sound strategies on exactly how to exploit and take advantage of this loan. Because when you're just starting out, I mean, it really could be an absolute home run on your first deal, which is really just going to give you a roaring head start into real estate investing.
Yeah. Well, why do you think isn't as well known, and like why is it more taboo? Like where do you think it gets that name?
Because it's slightly complicated. That's the reality of it, right? It's just, listen, I will die at the stake proclaiming this. This is by far the most powerful form of leverage that is offered to an average home buyer. Period. There is no form of leverage that is this aggressive that allows you to tap into so much buying power for such a little amount of risk out there. There just isn't. There just is not. So I've been saying this a lot lately. Everyone knows Spider-Man, right? With great power comes great responsibility. This is an extremely, extremely powerful loan when you know how to leverage it, right? Now, the flip side of that is if you're using the bank's money with a superbly low amount of risk, right? You're purchasing a property, a fixer-upper property, plus you're getting essentially an open checkbook as much as you can afford with your approval, getting an open checkbook to do all the renovations you want on this property. Now, on one side, you can use it to go buy a property and renovate the kitchens and bathrooms and live happily ever after. But when you look at it through the eyes of an investor, you can realize that how much you can really take advantage of this to build equity, right? You can use it to buy multifamily properties. You can house hack early, basically eliminate your living expenses, plus create passive cash flow. But ultimately, because it's such an aggressive form of leverage, the bank asks you to do a little more paperwork, right? There's structure to this, as there should be, right? If they didn't, this would be blown into the stratosphere and people would be messing it up, and the
Right.
government would remove it from the guidelines. So that's really why I find it is. Listen, 90% of the real estate world and real estate agents, lenders, everything like that. Listen, if you're watching, you're an agent, you're a lender. This isn't a shot against you. Just a little lazy, right? Don't want to look into this program. The reality is it can help a lot of borrowers, but because it's a little above and beyond your typical arm's length conventional loan, people like to stray away from it because, yeah, it can get complicated. But again, that's why I started this, because I realized, like, listen, it's actually not that bad. When you actually know what you're doing, it's really not. The house that, we'll get more into this, the house I'm in right now, we were ready to close in 40 days. 40 days. Okay. That's faster than most conventional loans. I mean, that's faster than some cash transactions I've seen as of late, right? We closed at 52 because we were actually waiting for the seller. But the idea is that when you have your ducks in a row and you understand this process, it's really not as bad as any other product.
Yeah, I mean, you do a phenomenal job of just making it approachable, of just breaking it down into simple terms for people to really go through and understand it. Can you maybe do that for our audience too? And I think Elise, she kind of took a question I was going to ask, saying, "Hey, could you go a little bit more into the process, what the loan entails, how you qualify, like
Sure.
kind of go, through the playbook here?"
Sure. So that's a great question, Elise. That's awesome. So the 203K loan, I've heard this thing called the 401k loan. I've heard it called all different things. So 203K, I have no idea where they grabbed that number from. Same thing with the 401k. Government just picked a number out of a hat and decided to go with it. But it's a great question. No, so the way the 203K loan works is it's a purchase plus renovation loan, right? So it's a renovation loan. It allows you to take a mortgage out, a 30-year mortgage out on a property. You're able to buy the property just like you would any other mortgage. However, you're also able to wrap the renovation costs and renovation estimate budget into the loan. So for example, if you were and these are very round numbers, if you were looking to buy a property for $100,000, right? And let's say so what happens is you know that you want to do that. Then you get into contract on the property, you go look at the property. There's someone called a 203K consultant involved. They're basically a home inspector that assists you with building a scope of work. You walk with them and you decide on $50,000 worth of work you want to do. Right. What you do from there is you add that $50,000 into that loan amount. Okay. And then ultimately you're just combining the two. And then what you're doing is you're paying your down payment is your 3.5% of 150,000, right? So whatever that is, call it 5K or whatever it is, right? So about 5,000, 6,000, whatever that is your down payment. So that's the way this whole process works, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's allowing you to buy properties that maybe wouldn't pass inspection, right? Or in a lot of cases, a lot of people were finding that their properties weren't hitting appraisal. What's great about these 203K loans is they're really there to boost the economy, right? The government created this program to try to get zombie houses off the block, right? Trying to give first-time home buyers, or not even first-time home buyers, but people that are looking to buy their next property and looking to maybe put some elbow grease into it, right? By doing a renovation, building it up. It's a great way to boost the economy, right? I know for years, I thought that fixer-upper, foreclosure properties, short sales, all that stuff that you see on the MLS listed as is, cash buyers only, I thought that was only for, big money investors that had all cash. It is. Plus, 203K loan buyers can buy those properties as well, because it doesn't matter the condition of the property when you buy it. They are doing this subject to what you're going to be doing when you finish the renovation. But to answer your question also about the guidelines and about like what's approval, FHA loans, right? The FHA is a government subsidized loan, right? So ultimately the government is pumping money. You pay mortgage interest. They're pumping money, and you're pumping money into this, insurance fund that's basically allowing people that are owner occupied loans a fighting chance to get a loan for a low down payment, right? It's very hard these days to save up $100,000-$200,000 for a 20% down payment, depending on where you're at. So what this allows people to do is it allows people to get in with really, honestly, pretty low qualifications. The FHA loan requirements on what your financial profile needs to look like is pretty much bare minimum. There's really nothing underneath it, right? It requires a 580 credit score, which is like, 580 is pretty low. If anyone has under a 580, I'm sorry, I'm not throwing a jab at you, but it is low, right? So the idea that you can get in at 600 plus and still buy a house is a great thing, right? It looks at a sorry, I got the phone ringing. It looks at your debt to income ratio, right? So it looks at, how much debt you have coming in versus what your mortgage payment's going to be. And then and that usually needs to be 50% or below. So 50% of your total debt, 50% of your total debt, you can't go over that per month. So versus what you get every month in terms of your income. And then lastly, they look for consistent, just like any bank, any like kind of normal mortgage loan, they look for consistent income year to year. Can you do this on a self-employment type of deal? Sure. But you have to make sure that you're showing income, right? The bank's only going to go off of what you show on your tax returns. If you're making money as self-employment, it's like kind of a double-edged sword. You want to write off as much as you can. You're only going to be approved on what you show, right? So typically it's geared towards people that are W-2 earners, have a consistent paycheck every week. Just like other loans out there.
Yep. And at least you kind of touched on this a little bit, but at least had a follow up on the max for the renovation and how that process works. And
sure. Mm-hmm. So is 50K the max for renovations, or just what the 203K advisor approved? So your maximum renovation is effectively unlimited, right? So you could buy a house for 50,000 and put 200,000 into it, so long as you're approved for over 250,000, right? So it's what you're approved for, what your limits are more based on what your maximum approval is. So say you're approved for a $300,000 mortgage. Your purchase price plus your renovation costs and estimated budget has to be under that 300,000. That's pretty much the way it works. So you could buy a $25,000 house and put, $200,000 into it and still qualify for this. There's effectively no cap on the renovation loan budget. Your only caps are really what you can afford, and then also the FHA loan limits in your county. For the most part, you could Google it. Literally, you just Google FHA loan limits. That is, you could look up whatever it is in your county, and it shifts greatly, obviously, with the different costs of living and the different values in the market. I know last year they were just updated, and they got updated quite a bit. They're pretty liberal. I think in New York, you could buy a quadplex around New York City for up to like 1.8 million or something like that, right? So they're pretty robust. You can get up there. But the best way to double check is just to Google your FHA loan limits in your county.
Yeah, that's great. Good questions, Elise, too. And again,
yeah,
wants to jump in with other questions, I'll keep monitoring that. I know I have plenty myself as well. But the one thing I was going to ask, I mean, I know you're a lot of times teaching people to buy that first home. It's the newbies that are getting into this.
Sure.
Are there any pitfalls that you really tell people, like, hey, here are common places that to just be aware of, to make sure that you avoid any kind of mistakes that you see as common?
So the biggest mistakes are just not knowing what you're getting into, right? Listen, at the end of the day, there's a lot of moving parts with this, right? And if you don't respect the process going into it, you're going to get thrown around, right? It's like trying to do anything else for the first time and having an expectation that everything's going to go well. I think people don't respect the process enough, and that's why they fall into pitfalls. So the biggest pitfalls, in no particular order: number one, not working with a loan officer that's experienced with this loan. So, full transparency on my first one, my lender had no idea how to do this, nor did anybody else in their office. I found this out the hard way. The one saving grace was that he was a family friend, and he bent over backwards and did everything in his power to make sure that we got through. So there was a lot of obviously lessons learned around the way, but I realized that a lot of those issues could have been avoided just by dealing with a lender that understands these loans. Now, it's the renovation loan niche is a very specific niche, right? Like maybe 1% to 2% of loan officers that that originate mortgages and everything like that really understand this loan. A lot of them out there will claim they understand it, but ultimately you want someone that does these, right? Some of these guys and gals that are out there, they specialize in these, right? So that's who you want to look for, and there's a lot of different ways to do that. And if you follow me, there's different strategies I give for that. But at the end of the day, that's the first thing. The second thing is, man, oh man, and this is on every HGTV show. This is every horror story you ever hear. People just think that they're the exception to the rule, that they could somehow get away with the cheapest contractor. It's just never works out well. Okay. At the end of the day, you want to hire the best contractor that you can afford. And it's worth paying that up front, because price versus cost are very different things, right? The price you pay for something is not necessarily the cost you'll pay over time. Okay. And what happens is people just still to this day, with all the horror stories, and I could be screaming it from the mountaintops, to not go with the cheap guy or the guy that's absurdly cheaper than everybody else. You're not getting a good deal, okay? Just because this guy came in $20,000 under what everybody else did didn't mean that he really likes you. I'm sure you're beautiful. I'm sure you got a pretty face, but they didn't come in $20,000 under what you're budgeting because they like you. They're probably missing some scope. They maybe are not really truly licensed or insured or anything like that. So, this loan, people say they have trouble finding contractors that do this loan. Good. You want contractors that are able to do the paperwork. You don't want the guy that's doing the paperwork out of the back of his truck, and he's the accountant, he's the receptionist, he's the sales guy, he's the estimator, and he's also the guy doing your work. No offense. And listen, my dad was that guy, right? For many years. I can attest to this. But at the end of the day, you don't want that for your project, and you have to understand that you want to go into this and hire the best possible person that you can. And there's plenty of contractors out there that will do this loan. It's like doing insurance work. Any contractor that's done insurance work can easily do a 203K loan. The way it operates is the exact same.
Love it. And Elise said, I'm sorry, I'm just very interested in doing this for her as well. But,
good. I want you to, and I'm here to help.
Yeah, absolutely. The contractor tip is great. The working with somebody who knows the paperwork, on the mortgage side, obviously. Is there anything else to look for in terms of complications that come into play, or?
Yeah, the big thing is I mentioned that person called the 203K consultant. So the 203K consultant is essentially like a referee on the project. Okay, so what happens is when you decide you want to do a 203K loan, a renovation loan, what happens is you'll get into contract on something, and then the lender will send over a referral to a 203K HUD consultant. Okay. Generally, these guys or gals are home inspectors that also have added the 203K consultant feather to their hat. Okay. The added thing that the 203K consultant does is they help you build a scope of work. They basically line item out all of the work that's being done on the house into a very regimented process, which is good, right? This is what you want. This is the way construction should be done. And then they are also they're also in charge of the draws throughout the project. Okay. So one of the things where people get caught up is they usually get their contractors in the house, and the contractors start creating, a whole scope of work of what they want to do. What you want to do is the first person that gets in that house before any contractor is that 203K consultant. Because at the end of the day, if they're a good 203K consultant, and really talent hangs out with talent, right? So it all starts with a good lender. If you have a good lender that understands this, they're going to know the best, most talented 203K consultants in your market. They're going to refer you to a very established, good 203K consultant. That 203K consultant's responsibility is to walk the property with you, go over what you want to be done to the property, but more importantly, goes over what needs to be done to the property so that it meets code, all of the requirements of FHA, so that it becomes a livable, safe housing, unit. So what you want to do is you want to create that scope of work with them. Once you create that scope of work with them, then you shop that out to contractors. What that does is something in the construction industry. I've been in the construction industry for years. That I'm an electrical engineer by trade. It's something called leveling the bid. And ultimately what it is when you have 3 different contractors come in and give an estimate, they're all giving an estimate on the exact same scope of work. If you don't have that scope of work as a baseline, as basically a cheat sheet for these guys, they're going to give you 3 different scopes of work that are going to be 3 completely different. It's a lot of stuff's going to get lost in translation, right? One guy's going to think, oh, when you said new walls, I thought you meant just repainting the walls. Another guy's going to think, I thought you wanted to knock the walls down and rebuild them, right? So that's where you see always those big swings in values, and that makes it really confusing and really hard to pick a contractor. So when you get that 203K consultant first, you create that scope of work. And then what you do is you just hand that scope of work to your contractors and say, hey, listen, this is what I'm going to do. Let me know what materials and labor is going to be for each of these line items. And it makes it very simple, and it's an easy way for you guys to compare it.
Love it. Great tips. I had Vasily come in and ask if they don't have funds for the rehab, can I get this type of loan if I get seller financing?
So you don't need funds for the rehab. That's the beauty of this loan, right? You just need the down payment, which is only 3.5% of your purchase price plus the renovation cost. So to put that into perspective, again, just to use easy, simple numbers, not saying properties are this cheap in your market wherever you are, but for example, if you bought a house for $50,000 and you put $50,000 into it, your total out of pocket is $3,500. Okay. So when you think about it, it's a very low amount out of pocket. Really, it's virtually the lowest that's available, right? The only thing lower than that is a VA loan, right? So, and VA loans do have VA renovation loans that exists as well, right? If you're a veteran, you could take advantage of that as well. It follows the very same process as the 203K. But ultimately, what's great about this loan is you're only responsible for that down payment. That's it. You don't have to pay out of pocket for any renovation costs, right? That's what's the beauty of it. You get to wrap that into the mortgage, and you get to pay that over the course of 30 years. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that's great. I'm still cracking up at Elise.
Elise is rifling them off. I love that. I'm in the hot seat right now.
She said,
"Hey, anybody jumping under me?" Yeah,
I'll make sure that I prioritize other people too. But if not, hey, Elise is asking great questions. So.
Absolutely, no, she is absolutely.
She asked on this one saying, "Hey, do you need to be in the property as it's being renovated? Like, is this something that you personally need to be in?"
Sure.
There you go.
Great question. So I found this out the hard way, but So yeah, so if you buy a house, in my case, I bought a pretty much a crack house that was almost condemned. I closed on the house. I definitely didn't want to live in there. There was no plumbing, there was no hot water. The tenants, or there were squatters in there that were literally squatting and going to the bathroom all over the house. They were just using every corner of the house as a bathroom. So no, I mean that day, I sure as heck wasn't going in there to live there, nor does the FHA expect you to do that. So one of the cool things about this loan is that you're able to wrap up to the first 6 months mortgage payments, PITI, right? You're able to wrap in your whatever your mortgage payment would be. You're able to wrap that into the mortgage as well. So what's really cool about that is they don't expect you to live in a property that you can't occupy because it's not livable, right? You have a renovation going on. You don't want to live in that. So you're not paying out of pocket for it. Now you are paying for it. You're tacking it onto the loan. But listen, if it's a couple grand, it's just adding to it, it might increase your payment a little bit. But if you're in that situation where you got to continue to live in your apartment or wherever you're at previously, it gives you that buffer so that you don't have to worry about that. So that's a really cool thing. The reason I said I learned that the hard way was that I didn't even know that was an option until after I closed on my loan, which would have been really nice to do because I knew that eventually my property was going to become completely tenant occupied. I knew I wasn't going to be there forever. I knew it wasn't my forever home. And I would have just thrown it onto the loan because what difference does it make? My tenants are paying the mortgage anyway. So why would I pay it out of pocket? Lo and behold, I ended up having to shell out quite a bit of cash for that 8 months that I didn't have tenants in there. But listen, I was able to do it and it sucked in the time that it was. In retrospect, it doesn't matter. It was a drop in the bucket for what that property's done for me over the years. But just know that that's a thing that you are able to do. And a good loan officer should be letting you know that it's available. And if they don't, just question them on that and make sure they get that in well before they give you your HUD disclosure and everything, right? Sometimes loan officers forget to check that box and they don't wrap that mortgage in and then you're stuck paying. But listen, at the end of the day, again, it's another cool feature of the loan. But even though I missed it, it's still a great loan, right? If you could swing it for a couple months to pay that extra.
Yep. Yeah. And, feel free. Here we go. Let's see. Lisa's jump back in.
Love it.
I mean, anybody else who wants to ask questions, go for it.
Yeah.
But Elisa's, having teeing us up here. How much? Let's see. How much room does the consultant give you for renovations, like taking out the wall or anything like that? Are there restrictions on what's considered an excessive renovation?
Sure. Great question. Again, Elise, you're on fire. So the 203K consultant really isn't the one that's limiting anything really. They'll tell you what, mostly you can and can't do, but effectively, you could do just about anything. The only things that are excessive renovations, I always make the joke, you can't put a Playboy mansion grotto in your backyard and a nice pool house and a basketball court. That's considered luxury items. You basically, it needs to be integral to the structure to the house, or has to be part of ensuring that it's a well-built home, right? So even landscaping, they're a little tricky on, if there's some overgrowth that you can, it's loose, right? Your 203K consultant would be listen, the tree that's overhanging on your house is going to possibly affect the foundation or something like that. So you could wrap in tree removal into your loan, right? So little stuff like that you can't really do, but for the most part, it's pretty much unlimited. Basically, their only limitation, or their only thing is you can't build off of new land, right? There needs to be some kind of existing structure, some type of existing residential or mixed use structure that you're able to build on, renovate on top of. But I mean, I know of instances where, there was just a foundation sitting there. The house was pretty much knocked down. There was a foundation and they rebuilt on that foundation brand new. And you could use a 203K loan to do that.
But will they let you know that, until they won't let you know until after you sign the loan? Is that how the process works? Or
what do you mean they won't let you know? No, they'll let you know. If the lender looks at it and they're like, listen, man, you can't put a recording studio in the backyard. Yeah, it's something like that. They would let you know before you submitted that scope of work and went to closing. But yeah, like Elise is saying, fancy tile in the bathroom, or a nice rainfall shower. No, that's all included. You could do all that. What I will say is this, and one thing I want to add here, and this is definitely a key point. So the house I am sitting in right now, me and my wife bought using something called a home style loan. Home style loan is Fannie Mae's version of the 203K. Having now gone through both personally, I can tell you that they are pretty much the exact same thing in terms of process goes. The only difference is that the 203K loan is mostly just better for multifamily properties. So if you're looking to buy a 2-unit, 3-unit, 4-unit property, and you're looking to like house hack, live in one unit, rent out the other, something like that, the 203K is a beautiful thing, right? Because it's only 3.5% down, regardless of how many units it is. Okay. On the home style loan, it's more geared towards single family. You also need a slightly higher, credit score. They want you really in like 680 plus. But ultimately, what's cool about the home style is it's a little more flexible once you start getting into the renovation. With the home style loan, you can put a pool in your backyard. You can put, a recording studio in your backyard, or do all kinds of things. They're a lot more liberal with that. And the other cool thing is that you don't have to pay. There's a little less fees. So basically you're not paying as much mortgage insurance up front. On a 203K loan, it's like something like another point up front that you pay that gets wrapped into the loan anyway. It's usually not a big deal, but there's a little bit of savings there too. And then once you start the renovation, it's a little more forgiving on the way you get your draws and everything like that. It's just a little more relaxed. So the home style, again, effectively the same thing as the 203K, but Elise, or anyone watching, if you're looking to do a single family, move in renovation, kind of like what I'm doing with my house, we're moving in, living in it, renovating it, and building equity on it in the same process, using the bank's money to build equity, build wealth. Home style loans generally better, unless, for whatever reason, maybe your credit's a little lower, then they'll put you into a 203K.
Yep. And I love at least go seriously take advantage of this opportunity. It's a golden opportunity. Yeah, Matt, like I said, Matt is phenomenal at teaching this, breaking this down, like helping people out with understanding this whole process. Is it 3.5% down for the home style loan?
So for the home style, it's actually 3%. So I kind of lied before, like 3.5 is the lowest. So technically, the home style is 3%. I personally didn't pay 3%. I paid a little more. We put 10% down. It just bought down the rate a little better. It was better with that, but actually 3%. I believe it's 3% if it's a first-time home buyer, or if you're moving and you're selling your previous house, it's 3%. Yeah, it's actually 0.5% lower than the 203K. So
nice.
A little more savings there. Yep.
Well, you've talked about a little bit the home style loan for the house you're sitting in, and how first house wasn't going to be your dream home.
Yeah.
Well, sounds like this one is.
Yeah.
Can you talk through like how you just the whole journey of how you got where you're sitting?
Yeah, absolutely. So like a lot of other people, we were dealing with the crazy housing market in the last 2 years since the pandemic. And we were looking to buy our, we just had a baby last year. We were looking to, get out of, we were living in New York City previously, which we loved. A cool high rise. If you see my other videos, I had a cool view in the background. Now I got a brick wall. But basically we knew we needed to move and move into the suburbs and have a place for our growing family. So, we started going through the motions, and what was very funny was I found myself, being a real estate investor for the last, 6 years, 7 years. I found myself going like kind of back into I don't want this to sound like arrogant, but into like the layman's terms, like the layman's world of buying a house. Right. I felt like I went back to like standing online for open houses and like just getting, beat in these crazy bidding wars here in New York, where we'd come in and they're like, oh, you're one of 30 offers. Good luck. Right. And it was just like, we were putting offers on things, and obviously we were looking for fixer uppers, things we can make our own, because at the end of the day, I practice what I preach. Could we have went and bought something move-in ready? Sure. But I don't believe in that. I believe in putting in the elbow grease, building equity into it. When a lot of people, with the market kind of shifting a little bit right now, the people that overpaid $100,000 over value just to get into something and beat out everybody else, like listen, that's a tricky situation. I never wanted to be put in that spot. If there's a market downturn tomorrow, 10, 20%, I'm still safe at this house because I bought it right. So the way I bought it right was I got to a point where like me and my wife were going to open houses. We have our newborn baby. We're, you know, it's with COVID rules. We're standing outside. We got our masks on. It's raining out. I have my newborn. We're waiting on this line, and we're waiting for online for a house that we didn't even really like. And it was cold, and we knew we were just going to get beat out by freaking 10 other investors anyway, right? Or like guys that were, you know, fix and flip guys that were just going to come in with a cash offer and beat us out. And it was frustrating. We went about 10 offers in that with to no avail. We placed 10 offers, and we were just being persistent about it. So what we started doing a little bit last, it kind of clicked to me. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like I know what I need to do. I need to go off market. I need to go direct to seller. Let me take advantage of the skill sets I already know. It's funny. I like, you know, I had to kick myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So exactly. Right. So what ended up happening. So I was like, let's drive for dollars but let's drive for our house, our dream home. Let's drive for the dream home. Right. So we knew exactly what areas we wanted. We knew exactly what neighborhoods we wanted to live, which albeit are very hard to get into. There really wasn't much that came online. You know, it's funny, like we just drive around houses that we lost out on around here. One of them is on this block. And we were driving around, and what ended up being was it was actually really fun. I told my wife, I was like, listen, let's take an afternoon. Let's drive these neighborhoods. It was like a 2-mile square radius. It was very easy to drive all these. It took a couple Saturday afternoons of us driving. We pretty much covered the entire real estate because we used DealMachine. It was super easy because we went around and just were able to tap, oh, I like that house. The cool thing about this is you're basically picking exactly what you want for your own home. You're looking at it and you see what it is, the condition, the yard, everything about it. You're not just at the mercy of whatever the MLS puts out there, which is what it was previously. There was things coming up. Like personally, we didn't like split level houses. You know, we didn't like mother-daughter, you know, up-down splits. We didn't. And there's a lot of those around here. So it was kind of getting frustrating. And like, we wanted to look at exactly what we wanted, which was capes, colonials, ranches. So when we were driving for our dream home, we went around and just added all the people and added all the houses that, number one, looked like they needed a little work or looked like they were a little dated. So we knew we could put our own touch on it, buy something under value. And number two, we were looking in the exact neighborhoods we wanted to be. And number three, we were both agreeing, yes, this is a house we would like. So we were driving through. Yeah, this is a good one. Add it. This is a good one. Add it. We probably built a list of about 150 to 200 houses. And then we started sending direct mail. We started using the ballpoint marketing, the ballpoint mailers. And you know, our messaging wasn't, you know, we're cash investors, we're going to buy a house, close quickly. Our messaging was, hey, me and my wife are outgrowing our apartment. We just had a baby. We're looking to move into the neighborhood. We really like your house. We're wondering if you'd take a private offer on it. Please give me a call or text. And lo and behold, that messaging absolutely killed it, right? So versus, you know, what I did on my postcards and other stuff in the past where you get like a 1% response rate, something like this. On these mailers, on the list that we drove of the 150, 200, I mean, we were getting like 8% response rates, 10% response rates. And they were all positive. It wasn't until people telling us to go buzz off. There were great responses from people that even maybe if they didn't have something, they're like, oh, but you know, my neighbor's selling something, maybe give her a call or whatever. So lo and behold, we looked around. We actually went and looked at probably a good couple of properties. We had about 5 people willing to sell 2 houses that we were interested in. And the one I'm sitting in actually ended up being perfect for us. It was exactly what we wanted, the exact neighborhood we wanted. The lady was about to go into a retirement home, into a senior living facility. The kids lived out of state or lived far away, and it was in a trust, and they were just about to list it on the market. But I came in and I said, listen, I can buy this house as is. Don't worry about renovations, because I knew I was using the renovation loan. Don't worry about renovations. Don't worry about fixing anything. I'm making this as easy as possible for you. You can go take everything you want, leave everything you don't want. I'm willing to take it as is and make a good deal for you. So that alone, they felt a weight lift over their shoulders. They you know, their real estate agent was telling them they had to stage the place, and then they had to hire another company for junk removal and storage and all this stuff. It was going to cost them tens of thousands of dollars to get everything all situated. Versus me, I came in, It's all about timing. I had mailed this place 3 times before, but I just hit when she was just about to move out the week later, and we worked out a great deal. I mean, we were able to pick it up for over $100,000 of what it would have sold for on the MLS. Easy. And the only reason is because we just had a conversation with the sellers and we understood what their needs and wants were. And we worked out a deal with them. And this is on our own home. We haven't even started the renovation yet. And we're still 100 grand in the black. Right. So, you know, the whole idea of like, if you're watching right now and you're just stuck and you feel like you're getting beat out on offers left and right by cash buyers. I mean, the market's pulling back a little bit, but still, you know, you're still in these competitive markets. Using DealMachine and like even to buy your own house, right? Using DealMachine to get out there, go direct to seller, you could still get these properties, be able to talk directly to the seller. No offense to you realtors out there, but like just having the ability to have that relationship, that one-on-one relationship. And then the beauty of the 203K and the home style loan with all of this is that you're able to add that extra value of saying, hey, listen, don't worry about the condition. Don't worry about any repairs. Don't worry about inspection. We'll take it as is. Don't worry about appraisal. Don't worry about any of that. The loan we're using will get rid of all of that. You don't have to worry about putting it on the MLS, getting a buyer and then getting 3-4 weeks into it, and then them coming back with a with a bad inspection, and then them going back to you asking for a $20,000 concession, right? That it avoids all of that, and that was the value we were able to bring to people. So that's what ended up working out. So we're super excited to be on our own place. And obviously we haven't started reno yet. I mean, things are all over the place, but we're starting very soon. And, you know, it's all a part of the renovation loan process.
That's so awesome, man. Yeah. And you're absolutely right about the timing. I mean, that's what we try to teach people about all the time, is saying, hey, you know, really, if you're buying your own home, if you're trying, you know, if it's an investment, whatever the case might be, just being the one that, you know, it's about right time, right place when they're ready to move out. If you're the one that's top of mind, if you're the one that's reached out most recently, like you're putting yourself in the position to be the one that they call and have a conversation about it. So
one of the things, not to cut you off, but one of the I think this is a really, really important point, because in retrospect, I wish this was drilled into me earlier. And I think I would have been more successful at wholesaling if I took advantage of this. And I did this because I think a lot of wholesaling, you know, call them gurus, or a lot of information out there doesn't talk about the most important thing about wholesaling or finding off-market deals in general. A lot of guys get into this thinking, a lot of people get into this thinking that you can just like, you're going to send out a slew of mail and people are going to call you back being like, yes, I want to sell my house for a 50% discount. That's not how it works, right? Deals are made, not found, right? You don't find a deal. You don't just get one that falls in your lap. You have to make the deal. The way you make the deal happen is obviously not having the conversation and getting into the negotiation, but the negotiation starts once they call you, whether they don't even want to sell right now, the follow-up process, right? Again, this was the 3rd time I mailed these people. In many cases, you got to get to them 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. You want it to be to the point. This is a long game, right? You can't expect people to just call you back right away wanting to sell their house at a discount. You have to slowly earn their trust over time. You know, listen, once in a blue moon, you'll get people that are willing to do that for sure. You will. I mean, you hear about it all the time. First mail, people lock up $100,000 wholesale contract. It's awesome. That's great. And they do happen, right? But I just think that my expectations weren't set in the idea that the most important process of all of this is the follow-up. It's the branding, right? The couple times you hit them, it's like, okay, you're not ready to sell. You're not ready to sell. But then this week, that month, the lady realized she's moving into a retirement home. So the 2 previous letters she never did anything with, probably threw them out. But when she read that letter that day, she realized, oh, well, I'm about to move. Maybe I'll sell to this family instead of having to dealing with a realtor and listing it on the MLS, right? It's the same reason McDonald's puts, you know, commercials every single time you turn the TV on, is not because they think you're going to go out and get McDonald's every time. It's so that when you're really hungry on your way home from work and it's late and you're driving home and you see the Golden Arches ahead of you, you're like, damn, that double quarter pounder with cheese looks really good. So you go, and because you remember that branding in you, you want them to think about you when that time does come up in their head that, like, you know what, maybe I do want to sell.
Yep. And like you said, you're putting you might get lucky. You might be able to put yourself in front of the right person at the right time. But for long-term success, it's all about, like you said, at scale, hey, getting out there, staying top of mind. And that way you're the one that's ready when the timing's right.
full transparency for anybody watching. I know you guys have a good relationship with Ryan Dossey, right? I just commented on one of his posts. Ryan was probably the first wholesaling guy that I ever saw that was completely transparent about his cost per deal. Okay. A lot of wholesaling people out there, they want to make it seem like it doesn't take money and time and effort to find deals, right? It does. And that's good, because if it didn't, everyone would do it and it wouldn't be special, right? So the whole idea is like, he's happy to tell everybody that it costs him $3,000 per deal. Now, if you're averaging getting $30,000 back in a wholesale fee, that's a 10x. That's a 10x return, which is better than any stock market. That's better than any crypto, anything else, right? This is a great return, right? And it's sustainable, because now you know what your cost per deal is, and he's transparent about that. And that's why I love Ryan, because he did that. Full transparency, it cost me $1,800 in direct mail costs to find this house. Okay. That direct mail cost of $1,800 saved me $98,000 on having to pay full price for this property. Yeah. Right. I don't know who you are, but I would pay $1,800 any day of the week to save $100,000, period.
Yeah.
So, and that's the way it is, right? Direct mail works, but expect to shell a little bit out. But just know that it will come back. It's a numbers game. It absolutely will come back to you.
It's an investment. Yeah, not an expense. Yeah. Ryan's fantastic too. I mean, we're, like you said, if you send handwritten letters one off within DealMachine, that's the ballpoint marketing. So his company. But this has been awesome, man. I know. I'm sorry to have to wrap it up on you. I know. For this, what is the best way for people to connect with you? I know you're super active on Instagram. You've got a variety of things that you're helping people out with. So maybe tell people how they can follow up with you.
Yeah. So my Instagram is really that's where I hang out most. So it's just like down below there, at the 203K way. 203K is actually 203K. I just like to clarify that, but you look up the 203K way, or Instagram, you just look up 203K. I come up, the 203kway.com. I have a YouTube channel where I do a ton of breakdowns of everything. If you want to find out the case study of exactly how I did my first deal, you could go to the 203kway.com/free training. It's a 1-hour masterclass, we'll call it. And I really don't hold anything back. That's the way I roll. And I just tell you step by step exactly how I found my property and how you could do the same. And yeah, I'm just focused on building a community of people that want to take advantage of this loan, and do it the right way. This is all stuff I wish I had when I did it. I'm finding that I'm kind of the only guy out there that's really talking about it, or at least talking about it in the right way. Or, I mean, to add another level to it too, the way I do things is looking at this stuff through the eyes of an investor, right? If you're just looking to buy a house and renovate the kitchens and baths and whatever, like, you don't need me, right? Like that you don't need to find my stuff. Like, you'll figure it out, whatever. But what I focus on is how to leverage the 203K loan, right? I help people discover the ways, like all the levers you can pull in the 203K loan to getting the most cash out of it, right? Because when you look through, like, again, it could help you renovate your kitchens and bathrooms, right? It's a great thing with that. But if you look at this through the eyes of an investor and you realize what this leverage can do for you in terms of building equity, cash flow, all this stuff on your very first deal or your next deal, you realize how powerful this is. But that takes a very specific set of processes, right? And the way you do it, you have to approach it not willy-nilly like you would if it was just renovating a dream home, right? This is going into it methodically to make sure that you are cashing in as much as possible. I basically call it like a combination of house hacking and the Burr method on steroids, right? Because you're doing all those things, you're pulling your money back out plus probably 10 times more, and you're just taking that and going to buy more deals. If you want to do that, if you want to use the equity you build on your first or next house to go buy more properties that you can go make rentals or whatever, flip, then that's what I focus on.
Yep. And I highly, highly recommend following Matt on Instagram. You've got a really, really good email newsletter too. I've been on that for quite a while.
Yeah, no, I like to speak my mind on there, so it's cool. But I always give good actionable advice for you guys to take and run with.
Yeah. So if you're interested in any of this kind of stuff and really like the step-by-step how-tos to do it, connect with Matt on all those places. So Again, really appreciate your time, man. This has been fantastic. So.
Likewise. I love you guys. Elise, thank you for the awesome questions. Any way I can help anybody here. Again, I am an open book. I'm here to help any way I can. I believe in giving first, and that's how I grew this community. I just was try to be the resource that I feel like I didn't have. But yeah, this was fun. Hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, and Elise says she appreciates you too. So there we go.
Yeah, thank you. Cool, man.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again for coming on, and to everyone watching, this is Matt Camp with DealMachine, and happy deal finding.